Hi, I'm Madison and welcome back to my channel. Today I have my November wrap up. So, the month of November, I actually did not read that many books. I was looking back at it and I was like, wow, this is not my best reading month. Although I did read like some new favorite books in November, I just like, I don't know, it's one of my lowest reading months. I only read 9 books in November, which is quite shocking. But, you know, that's life sometimes. I did have the flu. I had the flu when I was out of commission for like a week, so you know, it makes sense actually. Anyway, as per normal, I'm going to be starting with my statistics for the month of November. Like I said, I read 9 books, 8 of them were ebooks, 1 of them was a physical book, and 6 of them were adult and 3 of them were new adult. Genre-wise, I read 3 reverse harems, 5 romances, and 1 contemporary. And my total page count for the month was 3,052 pages. Which is not that much, but it's fine. So I'm going to be starting with my lowest rated reads and working up to my highest rated reads. So there are 2 books this month that I did not rate, and I'll be getting into those. First we have Underneath the Sycamore Tree by B Celeste. This is the new edition that's going to be coming out in January of this year. This is a contemporary love story. It is about a girl who has lupus. She has a chronic illness and her twin sister died from it when she was younger, and she also thinks that she will probably one day also die from this illness. And for her senior year of high school, she decides to move in with her estranged father, who like she hasn't spoken to in like 10 years. She moves in with him and his new wife and son, who are her stepmom technically and stepbrother, even though she's never met them before or anything until today. And she ends up falling in love with the stepbrother, and that is what this romance is about. I read this on the airplane. That was a bad decision because I almost cried on the airplane. So if you're looking for a book that's gonna make you cry, this is it. Then we have Still Beating by Jennifer Hartmann. I don't know what it is about Jennifer Hartmann. I can just never rate her books. There is something about them that like I could never in a million years like ever pinpoint what I want to rate these books. So you're following Cora and Dean. Now Dean is currently engaged to Cora's older sister. They have actually really grown up together since they were freshmen in high school. And when this starts off in the very first chapter, Cora ends up needing a ride home from the bar one night and calls Dean. Dean comes to come pick her up, and when he comes to come pick her up, the 2 of them actually end up being kidnapped by this deranged serial killer. And so the very first third of this book is them in captivity from this kidnapper who is doing awful things to them. There's huge trigger warnings in this for PTSD and on-page rape and sexual assault. So do know that, because the kidnapper does rape Cora on page in the first third of this book multiple times. So that is something that does happen, but it's their love story as the 2 of them are in captivity together as they're fighting for their survival together. And then kind of the last 2/3 of this book is them when they're out of captivity, when they've kind of escaped from this deranged serial killer, and how they're trying to get back to like their normal lives, but really how they've been so deeply affected by everything that they underwent while in captivity. I don't consider that to be a spoiler that they, you know, get out of captivity, because like, meh. It was so hard to read that first third when they are both kidnapped, because I think it's so interesting because I read a lot of like, you know, serial killer, like kidnapping romances, but they're different because they romanticize it in the fact of like, it's the person falling in love with the kidnapper, with the stalker. But this is a case where you've got these 2 people who are just being like flat out kidnapped. And they're just 2 people, and the kidnapper is never a good person. The kidnapper stays an awful, awful man, and who did these awful things, and there is no redemption for that character. And so because of that, it was so difficult to read those scenes, because it felt like something that you could actually imagine happen to someone. And it was such like a heartbreaking thing to read that like you kind of have to dissociate while you're reading it, like, because it was so intense. And so that's what really made this book so hard to rate, was because it was so hard to read at times, and I'm like, how do you rate something like that? But ultimately Cora and Dean's love story was so beautiful, and I really loved it because, and I'll come back to this with another book that I read this month, but I really loved the fact of like, it came down to the fact of our characters need time to actually work on themselves before they can ever actually move forward in their lives. And I love that that was a part of this, was, you know, our characters having to take a step back and actually do their own, like, work on themselves and, you know, get proper therapy in order to actually be able to fully fall in love and have a romance. And I really appreciate that as part of it. So I really enjoyed this book. I just can't rate it. It's just unrateable. We have one book this month that I rated 3.5 stars, and that is Happenstance by Tessa Bailey. This is Tessa Bailey's contemporary reverse harem, and I think a large part of this rating comes from the fact that it is a contemporary reverse harem. A lot of the times when I read reverse harems, they tend to be a megaverse or dark romances, basically, or there's something like fantastical about it. And so the fact of this being fully contemporary, I think, was a large part of the reason why I struggled with it, because they really enter into the relationship right off the bat, and I was just like, oh my god, this is moving way too fast for me. And so that was my main reason why. But otherwise, this was a super fun, super hilarious, super dirty reverse harem. Like, I thought this was the funniest shit that I'd read in forever. It was so much fun to read, and I was just laughing out loud the entire time. I think that it's not something that I would recommend to a beginner reverse harem reader, but if you are someone who has read a lot of these, definitely check it out, because it was so fresh and unique in the way that it was done. So you're following Elise, and she wants to be a reporter. So she decides to go to Roosevelt Island to kind of do some like backdoor reporting and like sneaking around to like surveil people to get a story. And on her way back from Roosevelt Island, she's on the tram and she gets stuck on this tram cart with these 3 random dudes. And there's like this intense sexual chemistry between all 4 of them right off the bat. And what happens is the next day, these 3 guys track her down to her place of employment and are basically like, hey, we would like to engage into a polyamorous relationship with you. And she's like, what the actual F is going on here? And so that is what this is about. It's her entering into this relationship with these 3 men who don't even know each other when this starts off either, which was kind of, I was like, oh my god, what is happening? But it ended up being really fun, and I loved the different dynamics that she had with each of the men. Tobias was by far my favorite. I loved him to death. And so yeah, it was just like, it was a solid like 3.5 stars. Like, it was better than average, but you know, not my favorite reverse harem or wide choose book that I've read, you know? We then have a 3.75 star rated book, which I hate giving 7.5 stars, but yeah, whatever. That's gonna be Tattered Stars by Cowles. This started off really strong, and then I kind of ended up giving it like a lower rating because of the fact that I felt like the romance took a back seat to the mystery plot. Like, I felt like the character's development and the mystery going on took over everything else, and I was hoping that this would have more of a romance focus to it. So because of that, that's where the star rating really ended up coming from. So you have Everly and Hayes. Now, when Everly was like 11 years old, her dad, she basically grew up in like kind of a cult-y, doomsday preppy commune that her dad ran in this small town. And to the extent that, like, you know, they didn't do anything with technology, they lived off the land, they were against the government, and that's how she was raised. And her dad actually used to kidnap kids who he thought he was saving from like other families. And so when this begins, you find out that Everly ends up actually escaping her family, going to town and basically reporting to the police that her dad has kidnapped this little girl. And this little girl is the sister of Hayes. Okay, so all these years later, Everly's mum passes away and leaves Everly the house that she grew up in. And so Everly's come back to town to kind of face her demons of the past and kind of, you know, revamp the house that she grew up in and kind of take over it and make it into like an animal sanctuary to kind of give the town something good back from all the harm that her father caused. And when she comes back to town, Hayes is actually the sheriff. And so the 2 of them cross paths again, and it's kind of their love story, but at the same time, there are new attempted abductions that are starting up. I really did enjoy this. I love Catherine's writing style. I really vibed with like getting to know this town and everything. It's just, as a romance, I wish the romance had been stronger, because it does focus more on Everly dealing with everything that she's dealing with coming back to town, and also these new attempted abductions and what does that mean for everything. So good start, excited to see this keep on going, but not my favorite. For my 4-star read, I have Just Between Us by Madison Wright. This is a very, very cute romance. This has no spice in it whatsoever. This is a, not even closed door romance. I didn't even have even attempted sex during this. Anyway, so you've got Ellie and Cam. Now, Ellie's parents basically own a bunch of different apartment complexes, and Ellie currently is the landlord for one of them. Now, Ellie's on the last track with her parents because she fraternizes too much with her tenants. She's too friendly with them, too nice to them, and her parents like, that's a no-no zone. When the book starts off, she ends up going to a concert. She meets this really handsome guy. They kiss, they hit it off, it's amazing, and then that's it, they part ways. Until the next day, that guy that she kissed turns up as one of her new tenants, and that is Cam. Now, Cam has just moved from LA to this small town, I think in Tennessee, and he is there basically to kind of recoup and kind of re-figure out what he wants to do with his life, because he is a photographer and he's kind of like hit a lull in his career where he's a bit overworked and he kind of wants to, you know, just be happy again. And so he is living there, and he is head over heels for Elle, but Elle obviously doesn't want to engage in a romance with him because she knows if she does, she will get in trouble with her parents and will be fired. And so the two of them are definitely struggling with that over the course of this book, and that's like a huge conflict between the two of them, is her being unable to commit and him wanting to commit to her. And it was such a sweet and adorable romance. Like, my heart was melting 24/7 while reading this, because Cam is one of the best book boyfriends you will ever read. Like, this man, the amount of adorable, cute shit that he does for her had me swooning. She gets sick at one stage, and he, every single day, brings her a brand new homemade soup. This man is making a new homemade soup every single freaking day to bring to her while she is sick. Okay, he knows her favorite oh my god, it was so cute. It was so cute. I loved it. It was so adorable. So definitely recommend this as a full romance read. It was really great time, and I cannot wait to read more from Madison Wright. Okay, now we have my 4.5 star read. That is going to be Midnight Kisses by Jeanine Bennedict. Honestly, like, yeah, it's gonna stay at 4.5. I keep going back and forth between a 5 and a 4.5. I just feel like the pacing ended up getting a little bit off around about this part. Like, it just started to drag a tad, that I started to lose interest like at one point, because I mean, this is 500 pages, but otherwise this is one of my brand new favorite new adult sport romances, 100%. If you are looking for a new sport romance to read, please, please, please pick this up, because I really loved it because it feels a lot more mature than other college romances that I have read before. Plus, this has some of the best sex scenes that I have read, and they are super long and super descriptive sex scenes, and I did not skip one of them at all. The two characters in this are switches, so they are both doms and both subs depending on the scenario, and it was so good. Oh my god. And so this takes place at Riverside University, and you've got Greta and Otis. Now, I know their names are Greta and Otis. I'm fully aware of that. So Greta is the football coach's daughter, and she's also just, you know, a regular sexy college student living her life. And then you've got Otis, and he is the starting QB for the football team, or at least he was the starting QB until he tore his ACL the year prior. When this book starts off, the two of them meet at a party, they hook up, and Greta is kind of like, she's a commitment phobe. Greta is really into like fuck buddies and one night stands. And so for her, she was like, this guy's a one night stand, don't even know his name, end of story. It was a great time, some of the best sex I've ever had, but it doesn't matter, I'm kicking him out the next morning. Kicks him out until a couple days later, she's at her dad's place, and the guy turns up, and lo and behold, turns out that he's on the football team, and she's like, oh my god, this is even worse for me now. However, the two of them end up agreeing to enter into a friends with benefits relationship. And so this story is following the two of them throughout their friends with benefits relationship, throughout like kind of the ups and downs of their romance and kind of everything that they are struggling with. There is a trigger warning in this. Greta's younger brother overdosed when he was a senior in high school, and so that is a large part of this book, because Greta still, you know, mourns her brother and still blames her father for her brother's death. And so that is a trigger in this. If that does affect anyone, I do want to put that out there, but I absolutely adored this book. The humor in it was A+. I was laughing my ass off so much. It was so good. I don't know how to explain Greta other than the fact of like, she is a bit of a vixen. She has a very healthy sexual appetite, and she's not afraid of that. And I really appreciated just how sex positive she was. And not only that, but just how sex positive this book was in general. It was really fun, and it just was such like a great time to read. And so I 100% would recommend this. Like, I tabbed the crap out of this book because there were so many lines that were just absolutely hilarious, or that they were just so well written, or that the sex scenes were just like, oh my god, this is really happening right now. Like, I could probably flip to any of these. Like, oh my god, yeah, she rates him in bed. He goes, what do you rate me tonight? And she goes, you're a B, maybe a B+. And he goes, excuse me, you just rated me a B, B+. And she's like, yep. He goes, oh, I thought you said it was amazing. And she goes, meh. Like, Oh my god. I loved it. I thought the third act breakup was actually really well done because it does delve into like our characters bettering themselves to come back from the breakup as well, which I don't want to get into too much detail about because I don't want to spoil anything, but it meant a lot to me with the way that Jeanine really handled it, and I thought that was like A+ territory, so love. Then we have another book that I'm still not sure if I'm rating a 4.5 or a 5-star read. I just don't know, and that is going to be Misfit by Elle Kennedy. This was my first time picking up a high school new adult romance in a long time that I absolutely loved. Like, I currently actively avoid new adult romances set in high school just because they kind of creep me out, or I can't really vibe with them. Like, I just don't like them. Like, and they need to be college age or older. However, Elle Kennedy was like, nah, screw you. Here's one set in high school and you're gonna love it. And I go, oh my god, I did. It was so much fun. Also, the guy in this is a hacker, and I love hackers so much. They're my favorite heroes. Oh my god, it was so good. Okay, so this takes place at Sandover Prep, which is a, you know, prep school that delinquent rich kids go to, specifically delinquent rich boys. Okay, it's an all boys school, and you're following RJ, and his mom just remarried to this really rich man who has a son, and the son goes to Sandover Prep, and so RJ also gets transferred to go to Sandover Prep because RJ is also a bit of a delinquent because he hacked into his old high school system and changed all of his grades thinking that no one would notice, and they all did. But he's an amazing hacker, apart from the fact that he messed it up. Like, his hacking is A+ territory. And then you have Sloane, and Sloane goes to one of the neighboring schools because her dad is actually the headmaster of Sandover Prep. And so this is RJ and Sloane's romance. It is a bit of a secret romance because of the fact that, like, you know, they don't want her dad to find out that the two of them are dating. But it is absolutely hilarious because, you know, he wants to get with her as soon as he meets her. He like falls head over heels, is hitting on her, is asking her out, and she's like, no, I don't want to deal with you. I don't want anything to do with you. And then like he slowly breaks down her walls, and I absolutely adored their romance. It was so much fun. This book was so laugh out loud funny. Now, it did take me a hot second to get into it because there are actually multiple POVs. So you're also following the POVs of all 4 guys who were going to be each book. So each book in this is going to follow a new couple, but you're going to be following the other POVs throughout the book. So you also are following, apart from RJ and Sloane, you're following Fen, who is RJ's stepbrother. You're following Silas, who is Sloane's male best friend. And then you're following Lawson, who is Silas's roommate and kind of like one of the most popular guys at Sandover Prep. And Lawson is one of my new favorite characters that I have read about in my entire life. He is a bisexual baddie. This man decides at the very beginning of this book that he is going to get with both of his teachers. Does he? I'll let you find that out. He's also just absolutely hilarious. His humor in this book had me rolling on the ground laughing. Some of the, like, Elle Kennedy has the funniest humor. Like, I was laughing so much. This was so much fun. I can't even, like, and it's also set with a swim team. So RJ ends up joining the swim team. So you get like a bunch of swim team stuff. And I feel like you don't let me read a lot of books that are set around a swim team, and swim teams are so hot that I'm surprised we have not actually gotten one before. So it's just for the guys on the swim team. Of course, as per normal, the sexy scenes are very good. This isn't like the spiciest book you will read in your life, but the sex scenes in this are delicious. And I love this. It was so much fun. Now, there is a mystery subplot that is running throughout this series, and that is the fact that Sloane's younger sister was like drugged on prom like the year prior, and no one really knows what happened, who drugged her, and like, you know, she ended up almost dying because of that. And so that is kind of an undercurrent throughout this first book. We still don't really know what's going on. I'm so invested to find out what actually happened, but this is such a great book. Definitely recommend it if you love Elle Kennedy. Even if you think that you don't like high school new adult, please pick this up because I don't like high school new adult, but I love this book. So A+ content there. Okay, now for my 2 5-star reads for this month. The first one's going to be Tangled and Tinsel by Trilina Pucci. This comes out on December 8th, so keep your eye out for it because it is a smutty white shoes romance. Oh my god, it was so good. It was also quite short as well, so like 100% one of my new favorite smutty Christmas books to the max. You're following Samantha, and she works as an interior designer for these like four really hot men, okay? And when the book starts off, she's, you know, interior designing their Christmas party or whatever's going on for it, and a snowstorm hits, and all five of them are now trapped in this house over the weekend. And it turns out these four men, these four really hot, rich, billionaire men, all enter like a polyamorous. So they end up, well, there's no sword crossing, but the four men like to share women together. And they are very much interested in Samantha, and this is their weekend where they basically proposition Samantha into entering a very fun weekend with them all. That's all I'm going to say, because this book is extremely smutty, extremely smutty, but it was so freaking hilarious, and the dynamics between all of them was so much fun, and it was just a really fun, like, Christmassy time, and it definitely got me into the Christmas mood as well. This was my first, like, Christmas read that I read of this year, and it was the perfect way to start, hands down. So 10 out of 10, do recommend. And then last but not least, we have one of my brand new favoriteest books, and that is going to be Find Me. This is book one in the Witsex series. Only the first three books are out now. The fourth one is coming out sometime next year. It is not yet confirmed, so I'm holding off on continuing this series until we get a date for that, because these books end on cliffhangers. Oh my god, it totally reminds me of Tate James so much. So you're following Shiloh, and her family was murdered by her stalker, and so she entered the Witsex program, and she's 18 years old. She was supposed to have graduated college. Oh, this is also set in high school. Huh. Well, guess I'm a liar. Anyway, if a book is set in high school and I love it, tells you a whole nother story. But this one was really cool because even though it was like they're all seniors in high school, she was supposed to have graduated the year prior, so she's already 18 years old, and two of the guys in the harem are also above 18, like they're like in their early 20s. So anyway, so Shiloh ends up moving to Arizona, and she's there to, you know, finish out her senior year of high school. She's, you know, living her life, and she meets her four really hot next door neighbors. And she kind of, and two of them are twins. You got Colt and Creed, and they go to her high school with her. And, you know, it's her romance with these four men, and the fact that the stalker who really murdered her entire family has not been caught yet. So that is kind of the main kind of sub everything to this, is the fact that her stalker killer is still out there. She is in Witsex, but he's still trying to find her, and she's, you know, not really, she's still very traumatized from, you know, her family being murdered in front of her. And so she does have immense PTSD. That is a huge part of this book. So if you are at all have trigger warnings when it comes to PTSD, please do know that. One of my favorite things though is when she does meet Creed for the first time, she introduces herself. She's like, "Hi, I'm Shiloh, I'm your next door neighbor. I just moved in." He goes, "Yeah, I know. I hear you screaming every single night." And she goes, "Oh my God, this man." And I was like, "Oh my God, this man." It was so much fun. I was in a reading slump when I picked this up, and it completely took me out of my reading slump. This was so much fun. It's one of my new favorite reverse harem romances. Nothing sexy really does happen. She does kiss each of the four men, and so you can kind of see the starting of like the romance between all of them, but nothing is fully cemented yet. It's definitely slower moving, but definitely amazing. Also, I should say that oh my God, I just realized that these guys are also on the swim team. What is going on? Oh my God, I just realized that Colt and Creed are also on the swim team. Wow, I just have a thing for new adult swimmers, clearly. I mean, I've always loved swimmers, that's not surprising, but clearly that is a theme going on here. But this was absolutely so much fun. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I don't want to give too much away because these books are quite short. They're like 250 pages, so to tell you guys anything else would be spoiling how much fun this just is to read. But if you are a fan of White Shoes romances, especially if you really are a fan of Tate James, please pick this up, because this gave me a lot of like Tate James vibes when I was reading it, especially of the Madison Kate series. But yeah, those are all the books that I read in the month of November. I had actually, while it was a light, you know, reading month, I read some really amazing new favorite books, which I'm so happy about. So if you did enjoy this video, please let me know down below. If you want to see more of me, please go to my channel, and don't forget to check me out over on Instagram and on TikTok. And until next time, thanks so much everyone. Bye-bye.